It's time for Waking Up with Wesley. Today's forecast and weather-wise discussion with WLOX First Alert Weather's senior meteorologist, Wesley Williams.
Waking Up with Wesley is sponsored by Exclusive Auto Brokers. For the best deals on wheels, visit Exclusive Auto Brokers on Beatline Road in Long Beach.
Oh yeah, it's Friday and good morning. I'm Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams. Thank you for waking up with Wesley. We've had such a nice start to Friday. It was so nice that some of y'all actually sent us some pictures in the First Alert Weather app. We'll take a look at least one of those. And then we're going to get into this weekend, the final weekend of summer, before we look ahead to next week, the first week of fall. The season is changing. Will our weather pattern change too? All right, well, let's get started with that first image of this morning. Sunrise on the coast. Heather sent this picture to us in the WLOX weather app, and I love this view. It was taken by Courthouse Pier in the Gulfport area, and notice that we've got the beach right there, the crystal clear sky, and look closely, you'll actually see the crescent moon. One of my favorite things about the crescent moon, you know, the part of it that's crescent is the lit part, and that light on the moon is coming from the sun. So, say it a different way, the lit part of a crescent moon actually points toward where the sun is in the sky. Now, obviously, the sun is below the horizon at this point in the day, but it tells you if you're a person who likes to look exactly for where the sun will rise, your crescent moon can be a cheat code because it's telling you exactly where to look for that. And like I said, just love that sunrise view. Thanks for sending that in to us in the app. Now, this is a nice morning with temperatures about the same as what we've been dealing with over the last few days. The afternoon, we're looking at those highs into the 90s. So not much change as we go into your Friday from the last few days. Still looking at hot 90s and not much hope for rain. That chance today, basically 10% or less. Here's a look at the next 4 days. You'll notice those 90s continue. So for the final weekend of summer, we're rounding it out with more heat. Each afternoon will continue to be on the hot side with those 90s on tap. If you are not a fan of the 90s, I've got good news for you. Like I said, fall is coming, and fall will officially start on Monday on the calendar. And yes, I know that South Mississippi, it stays hot for much longer than the calendar changes, but there is some truth to the end of 90 degrees when you look at the data. Here's what the data shows. For South Mississippi, we on average see our final 90-degree day of the year on September 26th. That's just a week away from today. So if that doesn't get you excited, how about this? The latest ever recorded final 90-degree day of the year is just 1 month away in late October. So there's, say it a different way, there's never ever been a temperature of 90 degrees or hotter recorded later in the year than October 28th. And those weather records go back to the late 1800s in the Gulfport Biloxi area. So lots of years to compare with, and that gives you high confidence that you will not hit 90 at all in November, December, January, February, March, April. But then they come back in May of next year. So we're going to take a 6-month break from those 90s, but they, on average, do tend to return once we get to late May. Now, being very specific about it, yeah, we're only talking about 90 degrees. Can we hit 89 degrees 100 times around Christmas? Absolutely. But as far as 90 goes, those call it quits by November, and they do not return until April or May. So that's one thing to look forward to. But this year, what about fall 2025? How's that going to shape up for us? Well, the first week of fall, this is what we're finding. As we see the season change next week, we are going to tap into less hot afternoons, and we could also find a rain system approaching our area too. So let's take a look at some of the details when we go to next week. First of all, you'll notice this chart showing the dew points. The higher the dew point, the muggier it feels. The lower the dew point, the drier it feels. And we are noticing a subtle uptick. If you go from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then it ticks up as we go to next Monday and definitely by the middle of the next week. So we will notice, it will feel noticeably more humid by the time we get to the middle of next week. That added moisture in the air could eventually make rain chances easier to come by. What it will also do is put a lid on these comfortable overnight temperatures, these nice mornings. Those are probably going to fade away because when you have muggier air, it does not allow for the overnight temperature to drop as rapidly, especially on the coast. So for your coastal lows going into next week, I don't see as many opportunities for 60s. We're going to lose hold of those. And I mean, it's not like a sharp increase, but just probably not going to be quite as comfortable for those overnights as we see lows in the 70s instead of 60s, especially along the coast. Now, on the opposite side of things, the afternoons, it actually does the opposite for us. While we are seeing a lot of 90s each afternoon through the weekend, final week in the summer, we go to the first week of fall and we lose hold of those 90s. Now, again, it's not a giant change. We just go from lower 90s to upper 80s, but that's what also happens when the air is less dry, when the air is muggier. It does not heat up as quickly during the daylight hours, so we might not make it to 90 each afternoon. Are these our final 90-degree days of the year? Maybe, we'll see. It certainly is around that time of year when you do tend to see your final 90, but still not going to be like chilly or anything like that. We're only going into the upper 80s for highs next week. And what could also help us out to avoid those hot afternoons is if we can get some rain clouds to develop in the area. And I am tracking a rain system that could get here by next week. So the way to track a rain system, one way, is to look at the change in barometric air pressure. We know that high pressure systems tend to promote fair weather patterns, quiet weather patterns, and that's what we've been underneath for a few weeks now. We've had high pressure. The barometric air pressure, by the way, standard barometric air pressure is about 1012 millibars or so, 1013 millibars, I think. So anytime you're over 1013, which Friday, Saturday, Sunday, much of Monday, we have high pressure dominating the weather pattern now through the weekend. So we're not going to see much change as this high pressure pattern continues. However, going to next week, we eventually see that air pressure drop, especially around Wednesday into Thursday. And that's as a low pressure system tries to move in from the northwest, and that's how we could get to some higher rain chances. Our models are keying in on that uptick in rain potential going into next week. So while there's not much rain potential for now because the high pressure is kind of keeping a lid on overall rain activity in the short term, once we go to the first week of fall, notice some of those lines creeping up. The European model ticks up from Wednesday to Thursday. The GFS model looks like that doesn't tick up until Thursday to Friday of next week. They both show around a ½ inch of rain possible over the next 7 days. So it's not looking like a lot of rain over the next 7 days, but whatever rain we do get might not happen until the middle of next week. So right now, your specific 7-day and 7-night rain chance forecast, it looks like this, that the rain chances on Friday and Saturday are basically going to be less than 10% for most of us. But then we go to Sunday, it ticks up to 10%. And then we go to Monday, it ticks up to 20%. Then we go to Tuesday, up to 30%. And that stays that way Wednesday. Right now, maybe the timing on that rain system, that low pressure system moving in, some point between Wednesday and Wednesday night. So we could see that increase from 30 to 40% around that time. And then maybe the rain system is past us by the time we get to Thursday, and maybe that chance for rain might decrease somewhat by that point in time. I'm avoiding using the word cool front with this because it might not behave like a typical cool front would behave. So I don't want to really use that word, even though that technically might be what this rain system is. Okay, so let's go through this futurecast for next Wednesday. And we're Wednesday morning, we don't see much rain during the first part of the day. But as we pause the clock at basically Wednesday midday, what's happening here is the model is showing maybe a few pop-up showers that are popping up from the Gulf, from the coast. They're just popping up, a few pop-up showers. But the real rain that we're looking forward to is actually up in northern Mississippi. It's all of this stuff. And it's going to be coming down toward the coast. And why I say this kind of looks like a cool front is because the wind shift along the frontal boundary. You've got the winds coming in from the northwest behind the front, and you've got the winds going up toward the northeast ahead of the front. So it can draw that with a bit more of a defined arrow. Winds coming in from the northwest and winds going up toward the northeast that way. So whenever you have the winds kind of doing that, it's, you know, as far as meteorology is concerned, we do call that a cool front. I don't think we're seeing a cool down behind this front, but it is probably going to look like a cool front if you check a weather map with this feature as we head into next Wednesday. There's not a lot of cool air behind that boundary though. All right, so as we continue through time going into Wednesday PM, you'll notice that we see a good deal more rain on the map around Wednesday afternoon, and this continues as we go to Wednesday evening. You can see still a good amount of rain on the map by that point in time. And by Wednesday night, you're still seeing it there. So just keep in mind that potential is there for better rain chances heading into the middle of next week, as we see that rain system trying to move in from the northwest. And, you know, we'll go through this one more time for you. So let's see if we can get this. There we go. So here's Wednesday afternoon, and I'll draw the circle of the rain that I'm tracking. So there's Wednesday afternoon. I know we're getting some pop-up showers down here. We'll see. That's, who knows, that could be here, neither here nor there. But the real rain on the map, northern Mississippi on Wednesday. And then as we go through time to Wednesday afternoon, we're seeing it slide a little bit more toward the south. So we'll move it a little bit like that. And then we go to Wednesday evening, and then we see it slide a little bit more to the south. Now you see why I'm kind of weighting the rain chances a little bit higher Wednesday night, because the sun is setting by 7 p.m. and many of us on the Mississippi coast might not have seen the rain yet. And then we go to Wednesday night, and now we're starting to see the rain move into parts of coastal Mississippi, and this likely continues to slowly move toward the south and east as we head into that part of the day. Now, we could use the rain, so I know it's not the best chance next week, but we're looking at whatever chance we can get, because this is a map showing that most of us have seen basically no rain all month. The worst spots have been east of Highway 49, Lucedale, Van Cleve, Pascagoula, Moss Point, Ocean Springs, St. Martin, Biloxi, D'Iberville, as well as areas to the east of Saussure and areas to the east of Wiggins. Those are places that have basically seen no rain at all. And we can verify that because the Gulfport Airport has clocked no measurable rain at that site. And it's been since August 30th, been that way. So no rain all month. When we should have 3 in the bucket, we have none. It's a big 3-inch rain deficit. The year, we are working with a slight surplus. We have 50 in the bucket. Normally we'd have 48 or 49 by this time of year. So we have a 2-inch rain surplus for the year. And we can thank a wet May for the year surplus so far. I mean, when you look at this, let's go back, 50 compared to 48, that's pretty close to normal, right? So that's why we show basically a close to normal annual rain so far. We got about 104% of the annual rain so far. And most of that is thanks to the double, almost triple the normal wet May that we had. We were waiting for April showers all month. They never showed up. And then they all turned in their homework late. And they showed up in May. The April showers showed up in May. And they gave us more than double the usual rain. And that is the reason why we still have a year surplus of rain, even though this super dry September has eaten away at all that surplus that we worked up. This amounts to us staying near normal for now, but if this drought continues to eat away at the surplus, then this number for the year is going to keep coming down, and we're going to wind up seeing a below normal rain year. I think there's a good chance that that could happen if you look at the normals. We talked about this yesterday. Normally, when you go from September to October, the weather turns drier. But what if the dry weather we're seeing right now in September is actually our dry October coming in ahead of schedule? If that's the case, then remember the trend after October, it goes up and up. So if we're getting our dry October right now in September, then that means the wetter November, December might get here earlier too. And maybe those get here in October. So maybe October won't be as dry as normal because we might be already getting the dry October ahead of schedule. This already happened earlier this year. The weather does not always play to normal. Remember, we just showed you May was way wetter than April, and that is not what normally happens. So we had our April showers behind schedule in May, but maybe we're getting our dry October ahead of schedule in September, which could also bring the wetter November, December also ahead of schedule. We'll see. But we'll take whatever rain we can get. We're seeing the drought worsen, and without much sign of rain in sight, this is likely going to continue. We're at a stage 2 drought out of 5 over Jackson and eastern Harrison counties, as well as parts of Bendale. And when we get the new map next Thursday, I think that this is going to continue. I don't think that there's going to be much improvement. Even with whatever little rain we might get next week, I don't think that amount of rain will be enough to bust through the drought that we have. So that's what we're looking at as far as this edition of Waking Up with Wesley. The end of summer this weekend, the start of fall next week, and the possibility of some slightly higher rain chances, some slightly less hot afternoons, some slightly less nice mornings, and some slightly muggier air. That's your change in the weather pattern as the seasons change in 2005 from summer to fall. Well, I hope you enjoy the final weekend of summer. I'll see you next season. This has been your Friday edition of Waking Up with Wesley. I'm Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams. See ya, and have a good one.
Waking Up with Wesley has been sponsored by Exclusive Auto Brokers. For the best deals on wheels, visit Exclusive Auto Brokers on Beatline Road in Long Beach.